Chapter 4 introduces the very important idea, and maybe I'm saying this too much, of repetition. One of the things that computers are extremely good at is repeating the same thing over and over again because they can do it so quickly. Before we get into how we do one of the methods for doing repetition in Python, I need to introduce a new topic first called the range function. Notice I typed in Python and not Python 3. It's actually easier to demonstrate what range does in Python 2. You can do this in Python 3, but it takes more code because things have changed a little bit. I don't want to get into the details here. So if I type in range 9, so range is a function that takes in a single, well, actually in this case I'm going to put in a single parameter. We can put in more as we'll see soon. If I type in range 9, what range does is give us a list of numbers. If you only give it one number 9, then it gives you a list of 9 numbers, but in computers we always start at 0. So it gives the list from 0 to 8. You can change the start of your list. So in this case I'm going to do range 1, 9, and it starts the list off then in this case at 1. Or I could do range 4 to 9. And that gives us the numbers 4 through 8. And you can also, if you want, change the step. So it doesn't have to go up by 1 every time. We can go up by 5s. And so we go 3, 8, 13. The next step up from 13 going by 5 would be 18. But this doesn't ever get to the last number in this list, so we get 3, 8, and 13. So that is a range function, and the range function is often used in conjunction with another function or another statement in Python called a for loop, which I'm going to introduce here. So the syntax for a for loop, or one of the syntaxes for a for loop, is for variable. That variable is local to the for loop. You cannot use I down here below. So if I say something about I down here, well, I really hadn't ought to do that. So consider this I to be local to this for loop. In range. So range 4, remember, is going to give us the numbers 0, 1, 2, and 3. And so I'm going to do a very simple for loop here where I'm just going to print out I. So this should print out the number 0, the number 1, the number 2, the number 3, and that's it. So we'll run this. Run range. An error. What did we do? Oh, I'm supposed to be running sum. That's why. So run sum. Yeah, that works better. Okay, so there's the numbers 0, 1, 2, and 3. What happens if we do something like this? If I print the string I, which is different from the number I, right? So what do you think the results are going to be? Now, in the first case when I did this, as I went through that complete range of numbers from 0, 1, 2 to 3, the I was changing. But if I put quotes around this, that's actually a constant. It's the letter I every single time. So now if I run this, what you get is 4 copies of the letter I. And similarly, if I, instead of putting an I in here, I put a 1 in here, then we're going to get 4 copies of the number 1. Now, there are some neat things that you can do with for loops. So, for example, and I'll put a comment in here now, this is why I called this sum. Suppose that I wanted to compute 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6. Okay, so here is a method to do this using a for loop. And notice that PyCharm's complaining at me because I don't have any statements inside my for loop. So I want the sum I'm going to store it in the variable, I'm going to store it in the variable x. Okay? And I'm going to start x off at 0. And I'm going to keep track on the right-hand side of x. Okay? And then I'm going to do a for loop. And I'm going to do this from the range from 1 up to, well, if I want to sum up to 6, I'm going to have to have my range go from up to 7 here. And over here, I don't need all these numbers, so I'm only going up to 6. Okay? So, initially, let me put a row in here. So initially, x starts off as 0. So x starts off at 0, and then we're going to go inside this for loop. And notice what I did here. So inside the for loop, you can have commands, and it's indented. So we always do indentations to put commands inside of another command. So whatever is indented is going to be inside the for loop, and well, we'll see what happens. So what I want to do is take x, which starts off as 0. I'm going to add 2x I. And then, when I'm all done, now remember x is global, x is not inside the for loop. I'm going to print x. So here's what's going to happen. X is going to start off at 0, and we're going to go from I in range from 1 to 7. So initially, I is going to be 1, and then we take x, which is currently 0, and add to it I. So we take 0, we add 1, and that's the new value of x, which gives us a 1. Then, this statement is done executing, so it comes back up to the for loop. And in the for loop, let's see, I want this to be centered. I guess I don't. Stop. Okay. I don't know why I bothered with that. In the for loop, I know goes to 2. That's the next number in the range. So I started at 1, goes to 2. And then we go inside the loop again and execute any commands in here. And it can be more than one command. So we take I, which now is 2, and add it to x. And in this case, x is now 1, so we get 3. So now we've added 1 plus 2 and got 3. This command, the commands inside the for loop have now been executed. So we come back up to the for loop. And I is now 3. So I gets set to 3, and we go back inside the loop again, and we add I to x. So the current value of x is 3. We add 3 to that, and we get 6. All the commands inside the for loop are done. Go back up to the for loop. I becomes 4. We add I to x and put that in x. So 6 plus 4 is 10. Again, commands inside the for loop are completed. I goes to the next thing in range, which is 5. Then we go inside the for loop. I gets added to x. In this case, x is 10. I is 5. And we get 15. And finally, in the last iteration, we're adding I, which is now 6, and x, which is 21. And so let's see, is that right? 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 3 is 6, plus 4 is 10, plus 15, plus 5 is 15, plus 6 is 21. So that is the sum of the numbers from 1 to 6. And let's see if sum gives us 21. So that is the right thing for that sum. What if we wanted to print all the digits from 1 to 7? So I'm going to start off, actually I'm going to create a new file here. New Python file. I'll call this list digits. Now the neat thing about this for loop is I can change this thing. I could make this a 25, and I can still run it. And so the sum of the numbers from 1 to 25 is 300. Okay, so again, what if I wanted to list the digits? From 1 to, say, 10. So I'm going to start off with a string. I'm going to call it S for string. And I'm going to start off with an empty string, so I'm not going to have anything in it. And this is common. You're often going to use a variable inside a loop. So over here I used X inside the loop, and you have to give it a start value. So this is called initializing the variable. So I'm initializing the variable S. So over here I'm going to have I, I'm going to have S. And this is going to go from 1 to 10, and S is going to start off as blank. And then for I in range from 1 to 11. So what I want to do is take the string S, and I want to add to it. So I is going to give me all the digits from 1 to 11, and that's what I want to do, is print out the digits from 1 to 11, but this time with a string. So what I'm going to do is add to this a string with I. Oop, hang on a second. So I've got a little bit of a problem here because I want to treat I as a string, but right now I as a number. It's in this range. So there's a neat trick to take care of that. There's a command stri, which will take a number and convert it to a string. And so now, when I'm all done, I want to print S. And let's see what happens. I do that. Well, if you run the previous program and not the current one, you get the same results. So I need to come up here and run. And this time I'm going to run list digits. And there they are, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Not very pretty. It'd be nice if they had a comma in them, so maybe I should add a comma. So I'll put S plus a comma in here. And that should put a comma between each digit. Oh, well, that's a little unfortunate. So what happened? So F started off as a blank string. And then I come in and I said, take S, which is a blank string, and I said, oh, put a comma plus the string, which represents the number 1. So I start off with this leading comma. That's a bit of an issue, and that's something we're going to have to wait until we know about things called if statements to handle. But anyways, this for loop, once we've done this first iteration, so I is 1, starts off as 1. Then we come in and execute this command. S starts off as the empty string, and we add to it the string with a comma in it, and the string representing the number 1. So this becomes comma 1. We come up, I becomes 2. We take the string, comma 1, and add to that, or concatenate is the way we say it, the string with a comma and a 2. And then we go down and I becomes 3, and so on until we get the string from 1 to 10 listing all the digits with that unfortunate comma to start off. If you want to list more digits, you can do that. So this should give us the digits from 1 to 99. And it goes off the end of the screen. So this is a basic introduction to for loops and a common way to use them. You initialize some variable, you go through a range, and you use that range of values to add something into this initialized version. Okay.